What's up, Leo? This is Jesse with 44 Astro with a super new moon solar eclipse tarot reading. It's going to be a solar eclipse. It's going to be a new moon taking place on April 8th, 2024. It's going to be at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be at 19 degrees Aries, which puts it in the second mansion of the moon. I'll put a picture of the second mansion up. It's about conflict, but it's about resolving conflict. And it's about being confident. You can read about it. Ooh. Now, we got two cards here. The astrology right now, as far as the solar eclipse goes, right? So the solar eclipse is taking place at exactly 19 degrees Aries, which is the second decan of Aries, which is ruled by the sun. So it makes it very powerful for the sun. Now, the moon, which will be blocking the sun during this eclipse, is taking place on a Monday and is a supermoon. Monday is Moon Day. That's what it's named for. So it's the moon's day, so it's going to be powerful too. And because it's a supermoon, it is the closest as it gets in its orbit to the Earth, so its influence will be felt. So with the sun being that second decan, which he rules, by the way, and is exalted in Aries, the sun is very powerful. With the moon being a supermoon, being as close to Earth as it will be, and also being on a Monday, it's going to be very powerful. And on top of that, at 19 degrees as well, is Chiron, the asteroid. Now, a lot of individuals or astrologers don't really know about Chiron or even acknowledge Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer, right? So essentially, it represents the weaknesses within us that we have to heal and then therefore can heal others later on because we've mastered it. At least that's how it manifests individually. Or it can just make someone really sick, like their whole life. But I'm not getting into that necessarily. What it mainly represents is called the Rainbow Bridge. Its orbit is in between Saturn and Uranus. Saturn on in, because they move fairly quickly around the sun, Saturn being the slowest, approximately 27 to 31 years, because it's an elliptical orbit. There's a lot of variation and change in it, right? So you're going to see all the nuance in an individual because all those planets move so much. But with the outer planets, it's generally a collective influence because they move so slowly. They will affect entire generations of people because they don't move much. Now, they will still manifest in different ways, especially when they're touching those inner planets. But what Chiron represents at that boundary in between Saturn on in, which represents the individual world, and the other side of it being the spiritual world, it's the bridge between the mundane physical manifestation and then individual manifestation, and the bridge to the sacred, no boundaries, spiritual, collective experience or connection within us. So it is that bridge between the mundane and the sacred, the bridge between the material to the spiritual. That's what Chiron represents. So a lot of what is going to go on, at least individually, and even in the world to a larger extent, right, is we're going to see either a great healing or a great sickness. Either way, it's going to be revealed, right? Whether it's healed or not, it's going to be revealed. And with a lot of this taking place in Aries, it may have to do with war because Aries is ruled by Mars, which rules war. And we're seeing a lot of wars on our planet right now with Ukraine and in Palestine. And it's either that we will see the darkness because that's what the moon does. It blocks out the light of the sun. And it shows us our darkness individually as well as the darkness in the world. We may see what's the darkness that's taking place in places like Palestine and the Ukraine. And then the world as a collective forces a healing. We force a resolution. Or the other can happen and the sickness gets even worse and then maybe the conflict expands. And individually this can occur too, right? Because that's what the eclipse represents. It's the death and the rebirth. The sun of God, the Christ light, right? And what I said in y'all's last video, if you understand what the 666 is, why do you think all the celebrities hold up the 666 over their eye, right? It's because they're a star. They are a star. They are famous. It's the magical square of the sun. 666 is the sun. People born with the sun in Aries being exalted, specifically in the second decan where it will be, there's a lot of fame that can take place there. Something is likely to be brought to all of our attention, the light in the world. And with Chiron there, it's likely something that's going to be sick. And we're already seeing things in the world that we didn't necessarily believe, that we thought were conspiracy theories, and seeing a lot of the sickness that's taking place in our world. It's really just trying to be healed. If you are a Leo ascendant, this is going to take place in your 8th or 9th house. So the 8th house is the house of death, sex, and transformation. So there may be a healing around those areas, or you may find that you have a sickness. So I'd be very careful. Safe sex if you're practicing it. 9th house, of course, is your wisdom or your philosophy on life, law and order, those types of things. You may be seeing a something that isn't right, that's dark there, that has to be brought to light and manifested. And that's, right there. That's what this eclipse is all about. It represents the resurrection, the blocking of the light, which is the death, and then it coming back and then being reborn again. It's also taking place in the time of year that we call spring, which is also when Easter takes place, which is the Christian holiday for the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which is the Son of God. And everything kind of revolves around the sun, right? Our heart is our sun. That's our star. And whatever events take place in your life are going to be very prominent right now. With it taking, this is the perfect time for death and rebirth. This is a very alchemical time. That's what it's all about right now, is the death of the sun and then the rebirth. And it's taking place in spring, which is going from the time where everything's dead to where it grows again, which is why all these holidays exist around this time. So expect great change not only in the world, but most likely within yourself. And in the tantric traditions, or even just Hindu traditions in general, they believe that solar eclipses specifically were a great time for exponential growth in spirituality. So I would recommend that if whatever spiritual practices you practice, now is the time to practice them during, from the 5th all the way to the 8th, and even after if you want, because you can get great growth over this period, exponential, that you may have never even thought possible, right? Because you can really shine on the darkness, and the rainbow bridge is there. Chiron is there. The bridge that connects the spiritual with the material is there. So you can merge it. Right now, there can be great spiritual growth. It won't manifest like that for everyone, right? If it's not your role in this life, if that's not kind of how you've been living your life or what you're really focusing on, it's not necessarily going to manifest like that for you. It could be that there's just a shining on something in your light. Something is shined in your light on something dark in your life that has to be healed, whether it be actual physical sickness or just aspects of your life that need to be healed and then have a light shine on it and then reborn. Anyway, I've been ranting a lot. But this is a very powerful celestial event that's occurring. And being Leos, the sun is your celestial planet. Okay, so it's like a big deal. It can be a very big deal for you. It can be a very big deal for all of us, to be fair. You really want to know what houses, so you really need to know your ascendant. And what I was saying with the houses that it would affect for Leo, that's if you know your ascendant. You need to know the time you were born. And it changes every 2 hours, the ascendant, approximately. So you really need to know that to kind of know what area of your life it's really going to affect. But I would expect that we see major changes on the world stage as well. Hopefully around healing or resolution rather than just more sickness. Anyway, Leo, I'm done ranting. You have 2 cards. You have Work Through Your Fear and A Fiery Climax Approaches. It's a new moon in Aries right now, not a full moon. So there may be some kind of event that's going to be scary that you're going to have to work through. That's kind of what it's screaming to me. It's going to be something maybe that happens, and it may be kind of scary, but like you're going to have to fight through it. And I mean, the energy's right for it. The mansion of the moon's really good for it, where the sun's located in Aries in that second decan. That's a great leader. That's leader stuff right there. That's a lead by example individual, if I've ever seen one. And courage. So everything's right for it. So if you do have some kind of situation like that occurs, as a Leo, courage shouldn't be a problem for you at all. It could revolve around this individual, an air sign, male or female. Or this is you looking at things very logically. But most likely, this is someone that either you feel like you have bested in some kind of competition or in some kind of situation, or that you feel has bested you. But if they did best you, or you feel like they bested you in some way, whether it be just like an argument or just something at work or in a relationship, and it looks like it has to do with a relationship, because that's on the bottom. You got the Two of Cups on the bottom, and then you right now has the Lovers. So this could be in your relationship right now. This looks like whatever this fear is revolves around your relationship. If you're single, it may revolve around like having to be assertive and go tell this person that you're interested in them, or open yourself up to where an individual can do that to you. And it could have to do with your spouse may be an air sign or a very logical individual. Doesn't have to necessarily have a sun in air to be a very logical, airy individual. If they have a bunch of planets in air and it aspects your sun, moon, or ascendant, even if none of them are in air, you could be a very airy individual. So maybe this is an argument that you won with your spouse or with an individual that maybe you're interested in. Or they won against you, or you feel like they weren't exactly honest in the way that they went about this, or with whoever this is you were competing against. You feel like in some way they were being sneaky. It could be your spouse, you feel like they were being sneaky. It doesn't have to be like sexually behind your back. It can just be like kind of passive aggressive, backhanded type comments, these types of things. You feel like they're kind of sabotaging in a way. And resentment can build up in relationships. Over time, if you don't connect enough and you're so distracted with life, a lot of time resentment can build up there. And that's very dangerous. That's where communication comes in. If you communicate, even when you're upset, as long as you communicate and you get it out there and you work it out and hash through it, nothing builds up. It's when it builds up that it gets dangerous. And that's what this is looking like right here. Something may have built up. You got 2 7s here. Last time you had all the 6s. This time you got the 7. And again, the 6s represent a star, which our star is the sun. And that's why all the famous people are throwing this up. They're like, hey, I'm a star. Why do you think they're called a star? Because they are a star. They're famous. A lot of stuff is revolving around them. That's what the 666 is. A lot of people don't know that. It also literally translates numerically as Nero, who was the individual that sacrificed Christ and persecuted the Christians, the Roman emperor. There's a lot of meanings of 666, as well as the carbon atom, carbon 12, which is what everything's on this planet's based off of. The life is. We're carbon-based life forms. But it even goes deeper than that. It just goes down the rabbit hole. We're not going to go down the rabbit hole. The conscious influence is you're feeling stuck. It could be an argument or like some kind of impasse you're at, either in your relationship or like about your relationship, maybe. Like you're questioning the dynamic of it, or something that's in the relationship that you're not exactly happy with, or vice versa. It's being communicated to you, even though I don't feel like it's being communicated in the healthiest way. In the recent past, it's like you planted a lot of seeds, or you were like building up towards something, and maybe that's the conflict. Whatever this you were trying to create or build up toward, or these seeds that you planted, caused whatever this conflict is with your spouse, or with someone that you're interested in, or like a loved one. It could even be like a family member, that type of thing. The unconscious influence has a King of Pentacles here. This could be a person. There could be an unconscious influence. This situation could involve either one of these kings, the King of Swords or the King of Pentacles. It could be a boss. These could both represent like a boss at work, right? Or it has to revolve around the material aspects of life, arguing about money, those types of things. That's the easiest hole to get drug into right there, money, because you don't feel like you have enough money. Things can get real frustrating. But if it doesn't have to do with your spouse directly, and it's maybe something like arguing with somebody at work or friends, or even arguing people online, it could be that you're being supported by your loved ones or your lover. So it could be like that. It could just be that the focus right now for you, because this shows you, is your relationship. And maybe you're neglecting other things because you're focusing so heavy on your relationship. But saying work through your fears. I mean, this kind of feels like it's pointing to like a big argument with like a loved one. And it's like you're trying to win in this argument, or in whatever this. You'll have different sides on some specific aspect of your lives, like something that maybe one of you wants to change and the other one doesn't. That type of thing. In your environment, it's got you upset. It's definitely got you upset. Whatever this conflict is, or these fears, I mean, it's got you focusing on the negative, no doubt about it. The advice is saying stand your ground, though. Like, you're in the right. Like, you got to take charge and be in control. Like, you have to. What your side is the correct side. Like, you have to stand your ground. That isn't always that. If the other individual is being obstinate and not wanting to be flexible on the situation, whether that be a loved one, or your spouse or loved one, or just like a boss at work or anything like that, you're in the right. But if they're being obstinate, they may not want to budge. And if you show them that they're wrong, it may even be worse. Because some individuals just can't accept that. It takes a massive amount of development to be able to be like, yo, I was wrong. Even in a situation that's like been elevated and like emotions are taking place. Like, it's very hard to be like being shown that you're wrong and be angry and still be like, you know what? I was wrong. And then that takes such discipline and maturity. And it's not easy to do. Most of us cannot do it. It's easy to do it later when you reflect, and if that's the only way you can do it that way, because reflection is good too, because then you can come back and talk about it later and maybe even apologize if you can get to that point. But communication is always key. But the outcome is the hermit. You may have to separate from this situation. Or it may be a foregone conclusion that there has to be a separation. Or even just taking time to yourself to balance yourself out. And like I said, because this is the resurrection, like Christ was resurrected. In all the many stories of resurrection throughout the history of our world, Zarathustra, Osiris, Quetzalcoatl, the list goes on and on. It's the same story, death and rebirth. Even in the alchemical, it's all about being reborn, right? That may be what you have to do. Step back. Really take many times in order to truly be reborn, like they're talking about, you have to be completely shattered and broken. That's why it's so hard to do. That's why it's so hard to truly be reborn and be a true alchemist. A lot of times you have to be broken, like horribly broken. And many of us, when we're horribly broken, we do not get over it. The life just takes us, right? But the ones that do are horrible, have horrible things happen to them and are broken, and then recover from it. That's what the wounded healer is. That's how you regrow. Now, once you're able to heal through something so terrible, you are reborn. You become something else. You become a beacon for others that are suffering that type of thing too. You'd be surprised that once you heal through trauma, that others that have had similar trauma tend to gravitate towards you, because you are vibrating that. You are vibrating healing or growth. Really, it's growth. And that's what's going to have to happen here. You may have to take some time and grow. Do what's best for you, Leo. If this individual is being obstinate and argumentative, and they're not really letting you have, and maybe to them maybe it's an Aries you're dealing with. Maybe to them it's more about winning than it is about being right. Right? And that's not even being right, but like being compassionate. Like, if it's more about winning and being right than it is about like love. What is love, right? Love is when you can look at someone else and literally, because you care about them so much, you'll put them before yourself. And I'll say this, that's generally a lot easier for women than men, right? But true love to me, for example, is if my wife decided for whatever reason she didn't want to be with me anymore, I would still love and support her no matter what, because I would want her to be happy. Because I literally would put her happiness ahead of mine, because to me, that's love, right? And love is one of those terms. It's like you could say in a sentence, I love you, but you don't actually, but I'm like, hey, define love. Everybody's gonna have a different answer. Like, you know what I mean when I say it, but it's gonna have a different answer because it's more of a symbol than it is a sign or a word. Not easily defined. But yeah, you may have to take time for yourself. And if that individual doesn't seem to really want to work on the relationship itself, which means sometimes having to step back and maybe compromise or sacrifice an aspect of self, then it's going to be tough to continue with that. But it's saying work through your fears. You may have to stand up for yourself in this situation. Now, if it's not in your relationship itself, if it's like some kind of outer situation, family member, or like at work or anything like that, it may be your loved one that supports you through it. So lean on that. Anyway, Leo, that's all I have. Please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it would motivate me to do more work on this channel. I'm still trying to get it monetized. I still got a ways to go. I still need, my watch hours are still really low. I want to put more content out, especially on the astrology aspect of things, but I just don't really have the time right now. I was hoping at some point this channel would kind of take off and I can stop having to do everything else as much to where I can put more time into it. But, it's not like I'm giving up or anything, but I'm almost there. So I just need watch hours, need comments, likes, subscribes. Those are going to help a lot to get me there. But either way, you don't have to if you want to. I'm just happy that you're here, and I hope you learned something. Happy solar eclipse, Leo, and I wish you the best. Hope to see you here again.